Hi, everybody. This is Indu Sharma. I lead communications for RB Health India, and I have been doing the communications portfolio for close to 16 years now. Today, I'm going to talk to all of you about the beauty of storytelling. Storytelling has been, a part of the communication sphere for such a long time. However, the tool has now come into the forefront, and people have started speaking about it. If I really go about the whole narrative, then the narrative has been going on for ages. I mean, we have just heard about PowerPoints, while the stories have been there for, I don't even have an actual date to it. So I would start by saying that, storytelling actually has two parts to it. One is the story part of it, which is the content. And the second part of it is the telling, which is the way you narrate it. And believe me, both of them have an equal importance, because when somebody is all ears, every aspect of the storytelling has an impression of the on the individual who's listening, and that's what makes it much more impactful. I would start by saying, in today's VUCA times, when the brands are struggling for attention, when the brands really do not know how to be, having a conversation with whether it's a millennial, Gen Z, or any other kind of audiences, because every 5 years there is a generation gap, a new generation coming up. A story is a beautiful format which has been connecting with every generation after generation, because stories are memorable. I'll give you a very simple example of this. If I today right now ask you one small thing, what does slow and steady wins the race mean for you? I will take a pause, because I know all of you are thinking and going back into the memory lane and actually looking at that hair, that tortoise, the story, what all of it was all about. Why? Because whether you were told the story at the age of 2, 4, as an infant, or whatever it is, today also you remember it. And which is why most of the important messages are often told to us in the format of a story. So much so that, if any information is given to us, our mind always try to find a rhythm, the story of rhythm in it, so that we can remember it for a longer time. So that makes story very, very critical for brand narrative. And believe me, my friends, it's going to remain like that for such a long time. Why is that so? Man is a social animal. We relate to stories, and organizations today are trying to create a bond. They want people to know them, they want people to hear their story, they want people to trust them. And how is that possible? It's only possible by telling compelling stories. Today the brands are looking at having their employees as evangelists. There are promoter driven companies who have brilliant legacy that they want to bring out. There are brands who are doing purpose, and they want that to be spoken about. So actually, stories really are important for every aspect of a communicator's life. And it has taken a lot more center stage with the behavior change communication. We have all heard that how, the social ailments, and whether it's about SDGs, which is a social, a sustainable impact that we are all trying to create. That's where the stories take a center stage, because when you want to change somebody's behavior, you have to create a need gap, you have to address it, you have to give a solution. And that is when you are able to have that individual on your side to have that kind of action. I would give you a principle which is called a Freytag's pyramid. And it has been existing for such a long time. It's just that most of the time we don't go by the technical language of it. Now, what is Freytag's pyramid? It's very simple. It's small stages. So how do you start? You start by inciting the audience. You give them a story, a plot. You start by speaking what is it all about. Then you create some complications to it, and you add that bit of the narrative which says, what, there is a problem. And then you take it to a climax, which is the peak, which is where the individual starts thinking like you are thinking. Then you follow it up by following action, because once the climax is there, the person is who's listening to the story is along with you, and then you land it with the final outcome. Most of us do not really know that any of the happy stories actually help the brain release a neurochemical called dopamine. So when we hear the happy endings of the stories, we are all very happy. And what is dopamine? Dopamine actually makes us feel, good about everything. We even end up taking actions that we have not even thought of. It is brilliantly used by people who are actually in, donation seeking industries. So an NGO, I'll give you an example for myself. A few days back, I was all occupied, busy in my work, and suddenly I get a call from one person who says, can I take a few minutes of yours? And I'm like, nice and generous. Yeah, fine. Why not? And the person said, I want to tell you about Deepak, a guy who actually is 8 years old, studies in class second, and, was going out with his parents on a small bus on a rickety road in UP, and suddenly the bus met with an accident. The child was hurt very badly, few ribs were broken. Now, I am so interested. If I look at it from the pyramid angle, the person has already incited me. He has created a complexity by telling me the bus got hit. I am imagining what could be the problem, what happened, and then there is a climax that, oh, there's a problem. The child is in need. And then what? Government has started helping the child. And after some time, unfortunately, because there are limited funds granted to each of the individual, the funds were finished. Now they're reaching out to people for help. And the individual who was on the phone on the other side asked me that, would you like to help? And I suddenly felt such empathy for the child that I wanted to pay. These are simple ways of giving a narrative wherein you make the person empathetic to your story. And why am I giving you this story? Because today, most of these are actually behavior change communications, wherein we are wanting people to take action. And that in many, many ways is actually really possible when you use the story as a very important tool. And a lot of brands, even in the spaces like, whether it's about Coca-Cola, whether it's about IKEA, today we all look at them as legacy brands. Why? Because there is a story that we have all heard about all of them. So we have to really look at it from that point, that the storytelling is versatile. Storytelling has been there. My mind is attuned to storytelling. I want to listen to it. We started looking at presentations very recently. The data is not something that really excites me. What really excites me is a human interest angle. And as communicators, when we look at any content piece, we always think, what should be my human interest in it? What should be the headline? What should I say? How should I give a paraphrase the, synopsis of the story for somebody? Why all of that? Because eventually everywhere we are trying to create a story which somebody will be happy to listen to, happy to remember, and will be able to take some action on. And as an organization, if you're really able to get somebody to walk this mile through the journey of this sorry, take two. And as an organization, if you're able to really take somebody along on this journey with you, then the purpose of communication is resolved. I would say that, storytelling should be taken all the more seriously in times where we have digital as one of the key assets. Because earlier, when there was only print medium, we could not really utilize it to its maximum potential, because we were limited by, the one dimensional view of what somebody could eventually use it as. But today, when you have digital formats, you have owned and earned and paid mediums, you are really able to, utilize the extent that a story can be utilized for. So, that is something that we should be using. And today, really, I mean, there have been so many kinds of storytelling. Uh, a lot of them are new formats. Earlier, we used to be one small story which is told as one off. Then we got long format stories, which were like, a longer duration of, say, a 10-minute or 15-minute. Now we have sequential storytelling also, which allows you to tell the message in bits and pieces, which is such a brilliant way of telling. Now we also have user generated stories, which is, that people from outside of your organization are adding to your story and propagating it even further. Then we have employee stories, which are actually the stories where, you give a base to the employees. You take them along, you tell them about your mission, your vision, the kind of work that you're feeling, so that they start feeling proud for you. And then they create stories which can be further propagated through their channels, which increases the impact of your storytelling as well, because as an organization you can only reach out to those many people, but the people attached to you will be able to take it further to so many more people. So I mean, it's, if you have to really look at the beauty of storytelling, I would say there is no dearth of the pointers which will be compelling us to use this format more and more. But I have tried to today speak about few of them and try to include a pyramid which helps you in creating impactful stories, and think of certain aspects which you should be actually utilizing once as a communicator you start using them. But my suggestion would be that please try to wrap your message in a compelling story format so that you can nudge the audiences to take the rightful actions. That'll be all for from my side. Thank you so much for watching this.